What's up, everybody? Well, it is over. The NFL season last night came to a close with the Seattle Seahawks defeating the New England Patriots by a score of 29-13. The Seahawks are Super Bowl champions of the 2025-2026 NFL season. And what a wild, crazy, chaotic season it was. There were so many things that, as a lifelong football fan, I could have never predicted, didn't see coming. Starting with the Super Bowl. I mean, who had that on their bingo cards? Seahawks and Patriots. If you bet that, I mean, you made a pretty penny. But that was not my bingo card anywhere for sure. It was a wild year though. So before we move on to the upcoming season and the off season here, I think it's time to reflect and look back on what was a wild, crazy year in the NFL. Let's start with my Chiefs. My Chiefs this year, obviously, it did not go well. It was a disaster. It was terrible. It was bad. They finished with 6 wins and did not make the playoffs, did not make a Super Bowl run. It was really miserable. It was a really miserable time for sure this year. And I couldn't have predicted that. I honestly didn't think it was really possible that they would have a season that bad. And what was so strange about it was that everything that I have grown to know about the Chiefs, and we've all known about the Chiefs, finding ways to win games, the clutch gene, key situational, downs, making plays when they need to make plays, all those things that we have become so accustomed with the Chiefs. They just didn't do any of it. None of it. Everything was bad, terrible. They had injuries. They had mysterious disappearances on the offensive line at times. They had guys in and out of the rotation. Mahomes tears his ACL. It was just, from start to finish, a train wreck. Just a total train wreck, and it just went sideways fast. And we got down 0-2 right off the bat. Went to 2-3 with a tough loss in Jacksonville that we shouldn't have lost. And it just kind of never really gained traction the whole season. It was a rough year. Nothing worked. But, here we are. So we have the 9th pick now in the draft. Was not on my bingo card. That was not in my predictions at all. Just one thing in the wild year that was the NFL. More wild things. The AFC as a whole. The AFC this year was just so wild and wacky. You look at the Patriots. Who would have thought that the New England Patriots with Drake May would have made the Super Bowl? Anybody out there? Anybody? Not me. I thought the Patriots could have a nice team. I thought they could be a playoff contender. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect they'd be in the Super Bowl. Now, I'm a huge Mike Vrabel fan. I think Mike Vrabel is great, a top 5 caliber coach in this league, and I think Drake May is good. I think Drake May has shown a lot of promise and a lot of skill as a sophomore quarterback this year. Excuse me, but man, to see them in the Super Bowl is just wild. Part of it was the wildness of the AFC. The AFC was so wild and wide open that it created this scenario where a team like the Patriots could find their way in. You look at the teams they played in the playoffs. They played a very shaky Charger team at home, and they played a Texans team with some really interesting quarterback play at times. And they played Denver in the AFC Championship game in a blizzard with a backup quarterback. A lot of it was schedule. I mean, we can't deny it. It happens every year. There's always a team like that who gets the schedule breaks and they make a great run. That was the Patriots this year. Again, just one of the wild things that happened this year. You look at Denver. I mean, never did I think that Denver was going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. They were kind of like what the Chiefs have been, where everything that could go right for the Chiefs all these years, that was Denver. Denver just continually found ways to win crazy games, found ways to pull out these victories that they really shouldn't have won. And they did it. They got the number 1 seed. I still don't think they're very good. But they're pretty good. And they won the division and they were the number 1 seed. Wild. Wasn't on my bingo card. You look at a team like, the Bills. And the Bills, I thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl, especially in this playoff crop of teams. And they fell flat again. Losing to Denver, losing to Bo Nix. Just a disaster season for them. Was not on my bingo card. It wasn't my bingo card that they could lose in the playoffs. They've done it many times. But to lose to Denver in that situation, just wild stuff. And even like the Jaguars with Liam Cohen. I remember that Liam Cohen first interview, and I thought, oh boy. I saw that Duval thing, and I was like, ooh, that's a little rocky. But they were good. They did a good job this year. They played really well. The Colts, you had Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement to play quarterback for the Colts. That is wild and wacky. You can't predict that. You can't expect that. That was on nobody's bingo card, guaranteed. Just wild, interesting things. The whole AFC North, what a wild ride that was. Aaron Rodgers, he wins the division. Lamar Jackson doesn't make the playoffs. We had a playoffs with no Patrick Mahomes, with no Lamar Jackson, with no Joe Burrow. Just wild. That's wild stuff. That's never happened. And the AFC was so crazy this year. It was so wild. It was so interesting. I really believe moving forward, this is one of those seasons to me that feels like kind of a once every 15 to 20 year kind of season where just everything doesn't make sense. I've watched football a long time, and I feel like I know football. I feel like I know how the game works, and I know how these teams work and operate. This year threw me for a loop. It just did. It threw me for a loop all year long. The Chiefs threw me for a loop. All these teams I'm talking about threw me for a loop. This feels like one of those years that just the unexplainable happened. It just happened. And I think you're going to see a major kind of correction in the process next year. I think you're going to see a lot of these teams bounce back. A lot of these teams that weren't in it this year, I think there's going to be a big turnover in that playoff bracket, in that playoff seating. I think you're going to see a lot of teams like Lamar, like Joe Burrow, like Mahomes. I think you're going to start seeing some of those premier quarterbacks getting back in there. So wild year in the AFC. NFC was also wild, not quite as wild, but you had teams like the Bears. What a crazy wild run they had this year. The Bears were the comeback kids. They were the fourth quarter kings this year. They found so many crazy and interesting ways to win football games. They were right there with the Chiefs in terms of the fourth quarter stuff. That playoff game against the Packers, unbelievable. And then they almost did it against the Rams. They were one game away from going to the NFC Championship game. And it was right there. Do I think they'll do it again? Probably not, but it was so wild this year that sort of thing happened. That, again, the Bears kind of found all these fluky, crazy ways to win, and there they were. And they, one game away from the NFC Championship. Just wild stuff. The Panthers were the NFC South champions. Now, credit, the NFC South was terrible. They were 8-9. But still, they were not one of my top two teams. I had the Falcons winning. That's a terrible bet. And Tampa Bay in second. I did not have the Panthers winning that thing. I don't think the Panthers are very good. But they won it. They did it. They found a way to do it. It's just crazy. The Seahawks and Sam Darnold won the Super Bowl. That is crazy. This is a guy who's just a long-time career journeyman mid quarterback, and mid's putting it nicely. I mean, for most of his career, he's been bad. In the last 2 years or so, he's turned his career around, and now he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. It is hard for me to even say that. Sam Darnold is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Craziness. It's wild. This is, again, it's one of those years that you'll look back on years from now and you'll think to yourself, that's crazy. It's just crazy. And you'll probably never see something like this again for another 15, 20 years. It's just one of those weird random seasons where the crazy things happen, the unexplainable suddenly panned out and worked. But I think there's going to be a major correction next year. I think it's going to kind of revert itself back to where it normally is. I think you're going to see a lot of the more tried and true teams get back into form. This just felt like a year that just the crazy things happened. They just happened, and credit to the Seahawks. They are the Super Bowl champions. I don't know if they'll be back next year. I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be surprised if they miss the playoffs next year. I think they're a good team, but man, it's the Seahawks. It's the Seahawks. I don't know. It just it's one of those years. Again, you're going to look back and think, man, what a wild, crazy year 2025 was in the NFL. Just wild. But now it's time to move on to 2026. Offseason starts today. We got free agency. We got the draft. We got the combine. We got schedule release, which I'm excited for and amped up for. All sorts of trades and stuff. It's going to be fun. It's going to be wild. And I can't wait to talk about it with all you guys. And real quickly, if you have not followed my YouTube, I got a new YouTube channel. It's called Devin Talks Chiefs. Give me a follow. It doesn't cost you anything. I would love to have your support. Love to see you over there. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.